The wind howls across an empty plain. A shadow passes over the grass, then another and another, until the horizon itself begins to move. What looks like a storm is no storm at all, but an army. Tens of thousands of riders, their faces wrapped against the cold, their banners snapping in the wind. Behind them trail the echoes of cities burned and empires broken. The world has seen conquerors before, but never anything like this. Because this wasn't Rome. It wasn't Alexander. It was something faster, fiercer, and destined to vanish from memory almost as quickly as it rose. We know his name, Genghis Khan, the man who united the Mongol tribes and unleashed a force that would shatter kingdoms and redraw the map of the known world. But what most people forget is that his story didn't end with him. After Genghis's death in 1227, his empire didn't collapse. It grew, it evolved, it became a network of superstates, stretching from the Danube to the Pacific, ruled by his descendants. And among them, one stood above all others, the Yuan Dynasty. It wasn't just another dynasty in China's long history. It was the beating heart of a world system that connected Europe, the Middle East, and Asia centuries before the word globalization even existed. Imagine a letter traveling from the Black Sea to the South China Sea in less than 2 weeks, thanks to an empire-wide relay system where horses waited every few miles day and night. Imagine Persian astronomers debating with Chinese engineers in the halls of a Mongol prince who could speak 4 languages and worshipped in 3. That was the world of the Yuan. To understand how it began, we go back to 1206. A man named Temujin stands before the tribes of the Mongolian steppe. Through blood, alliances, and sheer will, he's united them all. They give him a new name, Genghis Khan, universal ruler. His armies move like wind over water. In months, cities fall that had stood for centuries. But beneath the carnage lies a strange order. The Mongols despised corruption. They rewarded loyalty, punished arrogance, and demanded efficiency. They built roads, secured trade routes, and created what historians call the Pax Mongolica, a brutal, enforced peace that made the Silk Road safer than it had been in centuries. Under this vast network, silk, spices, knowledge, and even disease moved faster than ever before. It was a world suddenly stitched together by horsemen from the edge of civilization. When Genghis died, his empire was already larger than Rome at its height, but it was his grandson, Kublai Khan, who would transform conquest into governance. By 1271, Kublai declared the founding of the Yuan Dynasty. But he didn't just rule as a conqueror. He ruled as a Chinese emperor, the son of heaven. He built his capital on the site of modern-day Beijing and filled it with marble halls, golden roofs, and foreign scholars. Marco Polo, the Venetian traveler, would later describe the city as a place so magnificent that not even the most learned man could tell all its beauty. Under Kublai's reign, the Mongols turned their empire into an engine of innovation. Paper money became standardized across Asia. The first national census in centuries recorded millions of subjects. Maritime trade routes reached as far as East Africa. Gunpowder weapons advanced rapidly, reshaping warfare. Persian medicine entered Chinese hospitals, and Buddhist monks debated with Muslim astronomers in the same royal courts. This was no barbarian invasion. It was a global synthesis of ideas. Here's where the story bends. Western history books often describe the Mongols as destroyers, ruthless nomads who trampled over civilization. But the truth is, they also built something entirely new, a connected world. At its height, the Mongol system stretched across 4 major khanates. In Persia, the Ilkhanate ruled with Islamic scholars and Persian viziers. In Central Asia, the Chagatai Khanate maintained the old Silk Road arteries. In Russia, the Golden Horde collected tribute from princes like Moscow's own, and all of them, at least in name, owed allegiance to Kublai in Beijing. Think about that. A Russian prince, a Persian minister, and a Chinese scholar, all subjects of the same imperial network. It was the 13th century's version of the internet, messages, goods, and culture traveling farther and faster than ever before. But like all great systems, the very threads that bound it together also carried its undoing. In the mid-14th century, cracks began to show. The great Mongol families quarreled over succession. Bureaucracy grew corrupt. And then came the plague, the Black Death, moving along those same trade routes that once carried silk and silver. It killed tens of millions, hollowing out cities and shattering economies. In China, resentment toward the foreign rulers boiled over. In 1368, a peasant-turned-monk named Zhu Yuanzhang rose in rebellion. His forces captured Beijing, forcing the last Yuan emperor to flee north. From the ashes, Zhu founded the Ming Dynasty, and the Mongols retreated back to their homeland. Just like that, the world's largest empire fractured into legend. But empires don't vanish. They echo. The Mongol postal system inspired Russia's early communication networks. The principle of diplomatic immunity, the idea that messengers could travel safely between nations, was first codified by the Mongols. Even the concept of a global market, of goods and ideas crossing continents in real time, was born on their watch. And yet, when we name the great empires, we say Rome, Britain, the Ottomans. Rarely do we speak of the Mongols as the architects of connection. Why? Because their story doesn't fit anyone's national myth. To the Chinese, they were invaders. To the Persians, destroyers. To the Russians, overlords. And to Europe, a terrifying shadow from the east. But the truth is, history is not about who built walls. It's about who built bridges. So the next time you sip tea that once traveled the Silk Road, or use paper money, or watch news flash across the world in seconds, remember the riders who started it all, the ones who ruled half the world not with monuments, but with motion. Their empire was forgotten not because it was small, but because it was too vast to belong to anyone. And perhaps that's why, centuries later, it still whispers through the winds of the steppe, reminding us that history doesn't repeat. It rides.